You're listening to Nurse Converse, presented by Nurse.org, a collaborative podcast amplifying diverse nurse voices. Get ready for a dose of inspiration, a sprinkle of education, and a whole lot of community.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nurse Nalina, and I'm so happy to be back here with you guys for another episode of the Nurse Converse podcast. If you're tuning in for the first time, you do have some catching up to do, starting with my first episode where Nurse Natalia and I discussed all things travel nursing, including the critical role of travel agencies. For today's topic, though, I wanted to focus more on the future of travel nursing because, as many of you know, throughout the years, there's been so many changes in traveling. Of course, the pandemic had a lot to do with this, and now there's just a lot of uncertainty in the field altogether. But the rates also have seemed to have lowered pretty drastically. Steps have been taken to cap travel pay in some states. So I think it's important to identify all these trends that we're now seeing. And of course, the role of travel agencies is super important for the future of travel nursing. So who else better to discuss these trends within traveling and healthcare agencies than someone who is right in the middle of it? And today I have Mona with me. She is the CEO of NuWest Healthcare and has been for 19 years now. She is a well-known leader in healthcare workforce solutions and an advisor for large healthcare organizations and systems like the National Institutes of Health, Indian Health Services, my favorite, and several public health systems throughout the United States. Mona was also honored as a top 40 under 40 leader to watch by staffing industry analysts. So Mona, first off, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit more about your background and what led you up to this role with NuWest.
Nalina, thank you so much for having me on today. And I started in the healthcare industry in this field. I started out as a compliance coordinator and grew into a recruiter role, then into an account manager role, working really closely with healthcare systems in front of dynamic census, and then eventually into leadership and now the CEO of NuWest. So I've been in this industry for 19 years and have watched all of the various iterations of it to date.
Awesome. Well, so it sounds like you've had quite the journey to get to where you are. And I also hear that you're very passionate about women pursuing leadership roles. So I love that. Want to kind of ask you about something that I may be more familiar with and you may be more familiar with, and that's these federal contracts. As a nurse, I've personally found these assignments to be unicorn jobs. I love them. I'm obsessed. I've been doing this for almost 2 years now, but I do see that a lot of nurses and healthcare workers aren't familiar with these jobs. They don't even know they exist sometimes. So can you explain a little bit more about these federal positions, how they work, and how they differ from typical contracts?
Absolutely, Nalina. So they are so different than a traditional travel nursing position. So one, you are servicing a community that is underserved. So the Indian Health Services community oftentimes are in very rural parts of America. You know, my favorite location that we service is actually in the Grand Canyon. And so it can be very, very, very challenging to get there. And so the assignment lengths tend to be longer. You sometimes see them as short as 13 weeks, but oftentimes you may see them as long as a year. And some of the reasoning for that is, it takes a little bit more of a ramp up time. So oftentimes these health systems are in rural areas in America. They don't have the modernalities that a traditional healthcare system might have. So in terms of equipment and supplies, and they may be a little backdated. And so they require a very astute nurse or healthcare provider that's willing to get their hands in there and figure it out, because it may look and feel a little bit different than a traditional healthcare travel nurse assignment in a traditional healthcare system that you might see just down the street.
And it's such a rewarding feeling, I think, just working in these places. And honestly, after going this route myself, I don't think I would ever go back to regular traveling. I tell everyone that'll listen, like, hey, go find a federal contract. I'm telling you, like, that's the way to go. So with your experience working directly in this field, what recent trends or changes have you noticed in the travel nursing world?
Nalina, such a great question. I think everyone's trying to figure that out, right? What is the future of travel nursing going to look like? And to answer it, I kind of have to take a step back and talk a little bit about the history. So travel nursing really emerged in the 1980s, and it came to be for a number of reasons. Number one, healthcare systems have always been in front of a dynamic census. To serve and solve for that census, travel nursing became a really effective way for healthcare systems to make sure that they had the right healthcare workers, but also a cost structure that they could sustain and maintain. So, if we think about COVID, obviously this was a dramatic census increase, right? Something that I don't think any of us ever thought we would see. And so some interesting figures that help curate the story of what really happened in travel nursing. So in 2021, there were nearly 50,000 open travel nursing jobs. Since December of 2022, open travel nursing jobs haven't topped 10K in volume. So that's the drop that we've seen and experienced, right? And as we speak today in early 2024, we are seeing just about over 6,000 travel nursing jobs available. So that is a huge contraction of demand. But there's a couple of things that keep me really optimistic. So number one, we've got an aging, population that is going to continue to have significant demand for healthcare services just in general. You've seen statistics after statistics that tell you that there won't be enough healthcare workers to solve for that emergent demand. And then number three, you're seeing challenged healthcare systems, financially challenged healthcare systems. And so the best way to actually address that is with a contingent labor force that doesn't increase your fixed costs, that keeps costs nimble and able to adapt and adjust as your census adjusts. So I think that, a really strong indicator of the health system's interest in travel nursing is actually the internal resource pools that you see emerging within the industry. I think that's a very strong indicator that health systems believe travel nursing needs for them are not going to go away, so much so that they've built infrastructure to support them long term. So I see a very optimistic future for travel nursing and the demand of it. I think we're just in a seasonality, a cycle per se that we will come out of. And I actually think we're probably at the bottom of that and starting to see some smooth air and some stability and consistency as we go into 24 and 25.
That's actually very reassuring to hear that from your point of view. Yeah, and I feel like COVID was definitely a key player in influencing these trends that we've seen in the past few years. And now we're kind of at this plateau where people are leaving bedside after COVID. And so there's still this critical need for nurses in many areas. Okay, so I'm curious about this. Being in your position, are there any misconceptions in healthcare traveling that you feel like should be addressed? I know it's super vague, but just anything that you can think of.
Misconceptions. That is such a big question. But, I think the thing that's on everyone's mind right now is travel nursing dying? And, like I said before, I really don't think it is. We've got an aging population ahead of us. We're having increased forecasted demand for healthcare. And I think that for sure the needs and services for a nimble workforce that's willing to be there for the dynamic census that's in front of healthcare will be there for several years to come.
All right. Well, there you go, guys. There's something for everyone. So Mona, thank you so much for joining me and agreeing to do this so our listeners can see all the factors that revolve around a career as a travel nurse. I'm sure you have quite the busy schedule, so I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. All you watching out there, go give NuWest Travel Nursing a follow on Instagram. They are always posting new job opportunities, shout outs, giveaways, which side note, I actually want to give away with you guys for a MedVenture camp ticket. It's in a couple of weeks and I am so excited. So thank you, NuWest. But that's what I mean. Like, go follow them on Instagram, go enter their contest. And while you're at it, go follow me on Instagram at Nalina Mendez. Thank you all so much. And I will see you again.
Thanks for joining Nurse Converse, brought to you by Nurse.org. Help us grow by leaving a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Nurse.org supports nurses with career and education tips, life advice, and breaking news. Thank you for all you do and for being you.